this panel is for the future of blockchain gaming, and we're really diving into, what will the future be in blockchain gaming specifically. We have a lot of industry leaders here, and I would like to turn over to them to actually give an introduction and a little bit about themselves. So let's go start. Louis, please go ahead, give an introduction, and then introduce yourself of what you're doing in Web3.
Thank you, James. Yes, so I'm Louis Garroche. I'm a developer at Ubisoft. I joined the company almost 5 years ago as a general developer. When they started a blockchain team inside the Strategic Innovation Lab. The lab itself is doing research, doing prototypes on various technological subjects on the industry in general, and they wanted to explore blockchain more deeply and actually build something on the blockchain because we expected it to be something that could big and could impact the industry. So since then, I worked on the various Ubisoft Web3 prototypes and smaller products. And right now, I'm leading the exploration phase, so assessing protocols, assessing solutions, and I accompany also the production teams that are building future Web3 games to achieve the Web3 part.
Awesome. Super exciting what you're doing. Turn it over to Seb.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Sebastian. I'm from Polychain Monsters. Our goal is to create desirable collectibles on various blockchains where we try to form like in a P around these collectibles and where the collectibles itself are NFTs and can form some sort of base layer or platform for then building games on top of it. And we're excited about especially really on-chain, fully on-chain games in the future. Yeah, and that's why I'm thankful to be invited to this panel.
Awesome. Lauren, please introduce.
Hi, my name is Lauren Bilica. I'm the Director of Partnerships at Illuvium. A little bit about myself. I started my journey in Web3 privately 2015. During my master's, I found out about something called Bitcoin, immediately got hooked on the concept and the technology, and made my way professionally into crypto 2017. So I've been around for quite some time, and yeah, just roughly a year ago, I brought two passions of mine together. One of those you already know, which is crypto. The other one is gaming. And I joined a company called Illuvium. And Illuvium is a gaming studio originally from Australia, but now working really decentralized throughout the globe with a team of plus 150 people, focusing on delivering AAA gaming titles into Web3. Currently, we have 3 titles in private beta. Those include a city builder game called Illuvium Zero, an open world explorer game called Illuvium Overworld, and our esports title called really Illuvium Arena. All those 3 games are currently, as I mentioned, private beta, but the good news is we have a card collection game live already called Illuvium Beyond. Go check it out, it's a really fun card collectible game. And yeah, that's Illuvium and myself in a nutshell.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Lauren. And Greg.
Hey. Yeah, I'm Greg. I'm one of the co-founders and CPO at ChainSafe. We're an R&D studio since 2017, focused on protocol development as well as like various SDKs and stuff. So we work on like consensus clients for many different blockchain networks. Specifically for this, we develop Web3.Unity, which is a developer SDK to allow gaming developers to like easily onboard and integrate into Ethereum-based like EVM-based chains. And yeah, and a little bit also about myself. Used to be a core developer for Ethereum, so deep in the protocol stack, and spent a lot of time on wallet UX and the interface there.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Greg. Really appreciate all the introductions. I think with that, now we have some industry giants, building in Web3, and I would like to dive into a little more detail. This panel is for the future of blockchain gaming. So I'd like to explore, what does the future of blockchain gaming mean to you? What is next on the horizon, and where are we going in the future? So I'll go ahead, Greg, if you want to go ahead and kick this question off, I'd like to hear your thoughts first, and then we can get everyone involved.
Yeah, I spoke about it earlier, and I'll try and be brief. It's like I spoke that, the future of it is incorporating pieces and kind of like piecemealing Web3 tech into a game where it makes sense. That might be networking, that might be, you know, some clever cryptography tricks, that might be actually integrating like the blockchain fully, using VRFs for various techniques. I think that's kind of where the future is, and I think also the future, that means that like we're abstracting it all away, and that comes down to the onboarding experience, the wallet experience. People don't need to know you're using Web3 and shouldn't even know it's a game, because it should just be a fun game. And I think that's kind of like my angle on it. Hopefully we get there.
Really interesting. Okay, so we talked about this a little last night, and kind of like the separation between Web3 and Web2. Should we have this separation? And I think this is touching on that same topic. So I'd like to hear the rest of the panelists' thoughts on where does that separation make sense, and does it actually make sense?
Yeah, I totally agree with Greg. The first aspect of the game that it should be a game, and it should be fun. And I can say it's like a ZK proof. A fun game is hard to make, not easy to verify. If it's not fun, you will see it right away. So that should be the main point. And but yet there are challenges, because the Web3 games has many constraints, being like you're using a chain, using wallets, using a lot of things. There are solutions to abstract it away. In all of this subject, there exist. Some of them are rolling out, and we're trying to stabilize this and find the right solution. I think that would be the next challenges.
Yeah, I just come from the marketing perspective now, and looking into the future of blockchain gaming, there's various aspects to it. First of all, blockchain itself is a backend tech, and yes, we can put it into the backend and not use it as one of the buzzwords to create a value proposition for the vast gaming community that actually doesn't really care if the game is on the blockchain or not. It has to be a good game. And this is where I agree fully with Greg. However, there are some sensitivities to it, because blockchain is working on different parameters when it comes to the front end. Like, we all know what a wallet is, and we all know what a seed phrase is, but most people actually worldwide don't know that. And so doesn't the Web2, I call them the Web2 gaming audience. Where's the separation between Web2 gamers and Web3 gamers? This is a term that's quite often used in the space. And there's this narrative of the Web2 gamers that they don't like crypto, they don't like NFTs. It has something to do with the reputation. It's complex. Creating a wallet, setting up a seed phrase. It's a little bit scary as well, sending high-value transactions through the blockchain when you're not used to it. And so there's a lot of barriers that have to be crossed. But we, as a Web3 industry, we found easy solutions like custodial wallets and such things that make the onboarding actually not the biggest problem. However, there's another narrative in crypto. But buy Bitcoin and the next day you buy a Lamborghini. That narrative is not correct, and it shouldn't be, also implemented in the Web3 gaming industries, and should not become one of the value propositions that Web3 gaming offers, because those value propositions are actually different, and they are, about the true ownership of assets, and having also the opportunity to bring those assets across different gaming titles when we are speaking about interoperability. But yeah. All those are soft facts. The most important thing is Web3 needs a really good game that can compete with Web2 and that can attract gamers fundamentally on the fun factor, and then the blockchain part comes second.
Awesome. Yeah, really appreciate the context there. Sebastian, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think, so I'm a collector myself, and so I really tend to see things from a collector's point of view. And I think, Lauren, you made a good point that with blockchain gaming, we have true ownership of items. Of course, like in the past 2 years, we've seen a lot of cases where the token ownership might be on-chain, but not the actual NFTs. Maybe the artwork is not on-chain, maybe not even the trades are on-chain. But I think in the next evolution of on-chain games, we will see more stuff happening on-chain, like metadata of NFTs, artwork, even though I don't think that that's the most important part, but also economics of the game, like some in-game currencies could be ERC20 tokens, for example. And then this is kind of a plug and play into the whole DeFi ecosystem, because if an in-game currency is an ERC20 token, like who prevents it from being traded on Uniswap, for example? And of course, like we need to be careful, as you said, it should not become like a Wild West casino for traders again. But I think as soon as there are the first games which are actually fun playing, then having the economic on-chain in a permissionless way is a nice addition.
Okay, awesome. Really appreciate that. So it sounds like, kind of this play-to-earn model that we saw really give rise to a lot of the earlier games is kind of, you're looking at this kind of being phased out more and more, where people can engage with the game, but really we just want to have an engaging game that gets people, that is comparable to kind of the Web 2 equivalents that we see, and that will ultimately bring in this mainstream audience that we're really looking for. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, play-to-earn is not a Web3 concept. Let's start maybe there. Play-to-earn has been around in Web 2 as well. We have professional gamers, they're playing to earn in Web 2, but I'm not only referring to those. There were various attempts by actually Web 2 gaming studios to implement models where people can, sell their assets back to the game or back to the market. And they were experimenting with innovative forms to build digital economies, all centralized. It's still Web 2. However, in Web 3, it was an easy concept that was easy to pick up and very quickly. But the problem with this is that it just facilitates one side of the market, and which is the supply side. So why does play-to-earn facilitate the supply side? If people are incentivized by play-to-earn only to play a game and do not have the fun factor, they will play to earn NFTs or tokens, and then one day they want to exit the game if they think they're at a point where it makes sense for them economically, and then you create really the supply on the market, an oversupply on the market, and then you see really, and we saw it with another big title in the space, really crash, and then its economy crashing due to the big focus on play-to-earn. So how do you get the demand side up? And now we are spinning in circles. We have to have a fun game to play that people really want to play to buy the assets from people that support the assets. It's a pure economical equation here that we have to take into consideration.
Awesome. Yeah, I really appreciate that perspective. So, I would like to transition over a little bit from, kind of this big scope that we started out with of what is the future, and talk a little bit more about, some of the nitty-gritty details. So, since we're at SmartCon and we want to talk more about, what are the oracles, what is the function of oracles in blockchain gaming, and, you're all utilizing different Chainlink solutions. Could you talk a little bit about how you're using Chainlink technology, how are you using oracles, and how is this impactful for your specific protocol? I think, Sebastian, I would love to start with you to talk a little bit about the CCIP implementation and other ways that you kind of used it in the past.
Yeah. Maybe I start with the other ways first, with VRF.
Perfect.
We started to use VRF in 2021. I think we've been kind of one of the early adopters of VRF. What we did is we sold our monsters in booster packs, essentially, because people have fun opening packs, myself included. And then we wanted to make it provably fair. Like, we didn't want to have a centralized server where the server decides who gets which monster, and then at the end, we kind of have to tell our community why maybe one of our team members pulled a rare dragon, right? So it will actually become a problem then. And so we thought, okay, what solution can we use? And here, VRF for getting a provably fair random number was the way to go, and it turned out to be the right decision. And now, since we have monsters on different blockchains already, and also we are not 100% sure yet which chains in the future our monsters gonna be, we are looking into solutions where we kind of stay flexible, and this is where CCIP comes into play. We are now launching monsters on different chains where these later on can then be potentially bridged by CCIP across different chains. If we see this in the whole context of gaming, this all sounds very complex, and we've talked about this before the panel. The users should potentially in the future not care about the actual underlying chain. So the challenge here will be how can we get all this abstracted from the front-end perspective? How can we make this not too complicated? But I think from the back-end technology side, CCIP is a good ground layer here, and like a first ground layer that is acceptable security-wise for not damaging the longevity of the collectibles.
Awesome. Yeah, really appreciate diving in a little more detail about your specific implementation. I know I also want to touch on Louis, kind of a little bit about what you're working together with us on. So maybe you'd like to jump in here as well.
So call us maybe late to the party, but we still haven't used the Chainlink yet. But it's been a while since I want to actually use it because I see the use case and it's obvious, especially the VRF. And it's been years since I tried to find a reason to push it into one of our products. So it's coming, and it's quite basic. Yeah, it's randomness into revealing metadata to prove that the drop is fair, that we're not tampering with it. And the funny part is that I also have to convince our developers that it makes sense, because when I explain, when I ask, does it make a difference if we can make a probably fair drop, that we prove to the public that we're not cheating? And they look at me with big eyes and say, but why? We are doing a fair drop. No one is cheating. They say, but I know, but we can go even further and just prove it. And that's why I think it's a great thing. And also I heard a lot of nice things about CCIP while I was here, and that's the next thing I wanna do. And we have no plans to use it yet, but there's a good chance we look into it.
Awesome. Yeah, happy to dive into more detail and learn.
Yeah. So VRF, I encountered VRF just after my start at Illuvium a year ago, and that was funny because when we were thinking how to use it for marketing purposes, for example, not only for ensuring randomness of asset drops in the game, but also for marketing purposes as well as community building purposes, we launched, as one of the first things that I did together with you guys, we launched small competition on social media platforms. And the reason for this was we have approximately 2 million people waiting for access to the private beta to our gaming titles, and you can only access it at the moment with a beta code. But we want to get people, the chance to win the private access early, so that the beta code early, and through that we launched small competitions with Chainlink, where we ensured, a fair distribution of those codes using the VRF functionality. And that was extremely successful and great usage for marketing purposes. But yeah, in general, for games, it's really important to have a trusted economy. And VRF is one of the ways to achieve this by ensuring a real fair distribution and randomness built inside those digital economies. Otherwise, there wouldn't be economies if everything is planned out in a way where you don't have a decentralized way of distributing assets within. So yeah, Chainlink is building great products. I've been a big fan for a long time, and yeah, really curious to see how our partnership and journey will take us further.
Awesome. Yeah, really appreciate that as well. And Greg, maybe you'd like to talk about kind of the work that we did on the infrastructure side as well.
Yeah, so for the Unity side, we worked to build out basically deeply integrate VRFs into loot boxes. As I said before, in Unity, there's we try to abstract away a lot of things. So we made it as prefabs, which are just simply little templates that Unity developers can use inside their editor. And so that way, we're using VRFs to have provably fair or aware loot box like reveals. Oh, geez. But yeah, so that's basically what we've done. Launched today, I believe. I think we have another 2 hours. EST needs to wake up. And yeah, so really excited for that because we have a bunch of people lined up and ready to use it, both from our side and I believe on the Chainlink side. So excited to see how we'll see some games actually doing that and deploying it.
Awesome. Yeah, really appreciate you going over this, and I think it's been fantastic to also work with another infrastructure provider that has millions of developers using it, and to see how can we get this technology in front of more developers and make it easy to consume. I think to summarize, that I've heard from some of the conversations here is specifically with like the VRF, it's how can you prove to your community that something was provably fair, which ultimately increases the value, increases what people really want from these different collectibles. And then along with like CCIP, it sounds like you're expanding your player base that you're able to capture, and how do you get more users into your platform. So I think that's an accurate representation of like, how do you guarantee certain cryptographic aspects that you can't do natively on the blockchain itself, and that's where really oracles and Chainlink comes into play. I think it would also be great that we've covered, what are we doing together, that I could hear more about specifically like game design and Web3. And this can be relatively high level. I think some of us are not game designers here. But I would love to hear your thoughts on, does Web3 games, however we want to parse this, does it need a different kind of like game design architecture? And when you're building these kind of economies, how does that tie in versus like a Web 2 kind of analogy? Do you need to build the game differently, or is it just you're building the same game, you tokenize it, and it's kind of good to go from this standpoint? So yeah, I'll start with Sebastian.
I think it kind of depends how much of your game you want to have on the blockchain. And then that makes things more or less complicated, because if you want to have a lot of stuff on-chain, then there are many considerations that will affect the game design. Like, for example, there are gas fees with every transaction. That might be high on a layer 1, low on a layer 3 or so. Then, when you put stuff on-chain, some stuff you might want to have encrypted first and revealed later. Like, let's say one monster attacks the other monster. Then the opponent should not know your attack in advance. And so I think here's where many challenges still are, and where it's where there are not many developers yet. We are just seeing the first frameworks evolve, like Lattice and Mud, for example, which support on-chain games, which kind of an SDK layer. But I think here we're super early and still in the first phases of game designers thinking through all this.
So to go on that though, I think like one of the biggest overlooks I've seen with a lot of games more recently is that you introduce games fundamentally without economists helping them have a very tough time doing marketplaces, in-game marketplaces as is. Not a crypto marketplace, like players just interacting with one another, especially in MMOs. WoW or whatever, RuneScape, whatever exists. And the minute you introduce crypto, where there's a possibility for a true secondary markets outside of the actual game, the game sinks that exist within it become completely fragmented and broken. And I think people are very quick to slap it on without realizing that now you have to rethink and re-strategize how your gold sync within your economy works, item syncs, degradation, whatever that might be. Just because of that secondaries.
Yeah, I mean, I have, in general, first it's about building a good game, okay? But then with Web3 games, there comes a big factor in, and this is tied to the revenue streams of the gaming studios. Because those revenue streams are now substantially different than from a Web2 game. Why is that? Web2 games had always, in the terms of service, ruled out the possibility of secondary trading. So it was actually illegal in most of the big Web 2 games to sell your account and to someone else, and start really secondary market trading. In Web3, you have a big focus now on secondary market trading. So the whole business model changes. And that's a really big challenge that faces issues, especially if you are just kicking off. Because markets need liquidity, and liquidity requires players to support that liquidity on both sides, demand and supply. So you have to have a very strong focus on community building and building early a big community without selling too much of your assets that will, at the end result then with you taking a debt from the future. So there's a lot of carefulness and a lot of specific economic thinking paired with game development and game design to launch, in my opinion, successfully a Web3 gaming title. And the most important thing about this is keep thinking early about when you're planning to build a Web3 game, think at the same time as you think about the graphics and the gameplay and such, put the same attention to the economy that you're launching. It's crucially important to get this right.
Yeah, if I may very quickly summarize the idea is that as a Web3 game developer, you shouldn't be careful not to sacrifice the game itself and not sacrifice the decentralization on the other hand. So it's easy to either fall on one side, especially when we're working with developers that have been working for years on Web2 games or not even non-web games that tend to have habits like to re-centralize something. Let's build a database for that, or let's decide on this on our backend. So we need to be careful to maintain a level of decentralization, but keep the game fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think Sebastian brought this up a little bit earlier at the beginning, but also Lauren just brought it up, which is if you really want your community to participate in a meaningful and impactful way, and you want them to actually feel like loved as a part of the game process, we have to rethink how we actually also treat IP and licensing. I think that's super important. In the crypto space, we like to say we're open source, but then we use licenses like BSL and like very restrictive licensing. And as we come to the metadata side and getting like the actual IP, a lot of games don't actually have proper licensing around the actual images and the content and the metadata. So like you own your asset, but really the licensing doesn't say so. And we need to be really careful about that. When you're building your game, you got to give people actual true ownership all the way down right to the the pixel art. I think that's super important and commonly missed because picking the wrong license at the beginning can be really detrimental to how your community can build upon it.
Okay, that's a really interesting point around like the licensing issue, because you're saying that while you're giving these players true ownership of their digital assets, and we expect people can build on top of this because it's composable, that really things outside of the blockchain also prohibit certain things. And so that's thinking about that earlier on in the process is really important to having a successful game.
Yeah, there's one of the NFT projects, I forget which one. It was Bored Apes or CryptoPunks, I don't know. One of them had like the wrong license. And you actually do not own anything more than the pointer on the chain.
Okay, really interesting.
Yeah.
And I see we're coming up on time, so I really appreciate sharing all your thoughts. So you're all working really hard in blockchain gaming, developing out super interesting things, and I'm really excited to see where this goes in the future. I mean, I'm sure we'll be working together as well on several different initiatives. So really appreciate you sharing your thoughts, talking about what you're doing, and then making your space great. So yeah, thank you for coming out here, and we really appreciate it. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.